Good morning and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at a cooldown siege deck that I put together for 10.1. Now, I tried to cram as many units as I could and cards that I could with the key tag cooldown. However, we had to make a deck that would still be competitive and can get you to pro rank because I like to definitely go in that direction. So this is what we came up with, and I'm just going to show you guys some of the cards that we didn't take in this case. I didn't feel like we really needed a movement tech. I did like the bleeding that this card gives, so this would be a healthy consideration to put into the deck here. So War Chariot, I do like the card, I just couldn't find a place for it. Siege Engine's always nice here too, but you'd have to go and sacrifice something in the Dandelion range or in the Scoia'tael range, somewhere up here in order to make room to make it fit. I wanted to focus on consistency and put the Hubert in, which is why we opted for that instead of the Chariot. Now, some of the other cards are a little bit anti-synergistic. We don't need some of these other neutrals and whatnot. There was consideration to play Black Rayla, but I felt like it was a lot less expensive to go with things like the Griffin Witchers and the Reinforced Ballistas, and it's pretty well doing the same thing. So Black Rayla didn't make the cut here. Maybe if it gets a little bit of a buff, maybe an armor on it or something like that, I might consider. But for now, we leave it out. And Priscilla was the last healthy consideration that I had here. Being able to heal a unit, reset the cooldown, and, you know, the inspired effect's always nice too because we have ways of boosting units. But Priscilla was a little bit expensive. So I prefer Priscilla back when she gave charges every turn, 2 charges when inspired. That was really cool. But for 9 provisions here, it was a little bit difficult to pull off, especially because we have so many cards that do similar things for cheaper, because Winch pretty well resets a cooldown. Most of the cooldowns are around 3 or 4, so you can imagine how this just kind of gets it done, but it doesn't have the 6-point body. So that was that there. We're going to be going Siege because a lot of cards that fall into the Siege umbrella have cooldowns. So this is going to be our big play here, getting this scenario out and playing Siege Engines around it. We have Amphibious Assault that's going to be helping us play 2 cards from our deck throughout the game. And you can pull into bronze cards, but we do have a couple gold targets if you need to. You can't tutor the top few, but you can tutor Dandelion and Full Test Pride. So keep that in mind here. And normally you'll see me going for either like a Carrick Marine, maybe a Centurion Envoy on a dry pass. You might see a Griffin Witcher or a Reinforced Ballista. Those are kind of my go-tos there. With the Amphibious Assault, I think we get the best payoff from those there. I tried to play Henselt last month. I want to give it another shot before I make an honest review, but I'm pretty sure the card has a lot of potential. I just don't love it just yet. But it did do some good things for this deck, and I think it has a place here. So we play a crew unit from deck. Whenever an adjacent unit's cooldown decreases, boosts up by the same amount. If it's going to get value, it's going to get value in this matchup because everything we're going to be playing has a cooldown. So it feels pretty comfortable here. Now, we're going to be pulling out the Rafford's Vengeance, or we're going to be pulling out the Caraballistas. This is why I say don't take Caraballistas necessarily with the Amphibious Assault, because we want to have crew units for the Henselt in our deck. So that's pretty much that there. Now, Shani's pretty good. Shani could be substituted for, let's say, Adalia, but I think it's still a very good play here. We don't have a whole lot of humans, but we do have some. And you'll be generally pulling these ones here. You often want to focus on just pulling the Carrick Marines because that's going to be your most points, but there might be time where you want to play a siege support so that you can give zeal to something. So keep that in mind as well. Use it how you need and see fit. And it's a little bit risky playing Raffords here because we don't have the Inspired Zeal Leader or Shield Wall or a Defender or anything of that sort, but we do have ways to keep it safe. We can float Carrick Marines. We can obviously have one of the siege supports on the board to give it zeal. We could use our stratagem to buff it. There's several different ways to keep it safe, and I think that we could still win the game if this is answered, no problem. And I liked Dandelion quite a bit here. I remember playing with Dandelion for a little bit last couple months, and I felt like it was one of those cards where if it's not answered, it just does wonders. And what we can be doing with this card here is putting the boosts that we're using with the order onto the Hubert. So when Hubert swings from deck, we can get Hubert over 10 points, and it makes a big difference there because they might not be expecting it. So really good tempo with that play. It reminds me of like a Sunset Wanderers where it just comes to the board and it's a huge whack of points. So that's what we have there. But also the passive effect, giving us the ability to boost the top unit of our deck by 1 it's going to help with keeping our engines, our big damage engines, alive for when we need them in the round that they're going to be played. So I like it quite a bit because, you know, it puts them at a 5-point removal more than often. So I like that. And Foltest Pride just makes a lot of sense here. We have the ability to set up crew with some of our soldiers here and the Hensel. We have the volunteers spawning off our leader, as the leader basically lets us help reduce cooldown and spawn tokens, and those are going to be soldier tokens. So Pride makes a lot of sense. Having the cooldown of 2 is phenomenal. It gets tremendous value for 8 provisions. It does require a little bit of setup here, but we generally have what it takes to get it done, and just felt like we needed a bit more control. Some cards, like the Reinforced Ballistas, have resupply, so if you play them and then you play a Warfare card that same turn, you get to play them again. So that helps us get a bit more value off of those, so the Boiling Oils are trading up pretty well. And that's pretty much it. We have Sentry Envoys for consistency, put it on formation in the back row, and we get the extra point off of it. So this generally helps us pull all of our cards here. If you look at the tutors one last time, we have Amphibious, we have Henselt, we have Rafford that's going to be helping pull cards if we can keep it on the board, and we have John and Hubert. So quite a bit in the way of thinning. I think that given any typical game, we're getting down to maybe 6 cards or something like that at the end of the game in round 3 in deck, which is actually very good. So I had some fun playing this today. It's not something I'd play every day. I haven't really played a lot of Stockpile before. I think we have like 5 to 10 wins all time with this leader ability, but I felt like kind of doing something a little bit different for myself, showing you guys like a little bit of a let's play, but it's also a deck guide, right? And hopefully you enjoy it. If you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're nearing 4K, and I'm trying to push it by the end of January. It's a personal goal of mine, so let's make it happen. Now let's get into the games. Alright, and for the first game we have Scoia'tael, Nature's Gift, and I've been seeing a lot of this coming up lately, and that makes me quite happy. I actually really like Scoia'tael, Nature's Gift. Like, I probably have more wins with Scoia'tael Gift from back in the day than, like, anything else. So I like the carryover that we have from Dandelion round 1. I don't really want a lot of siege engines here. Probably put back one of those, maybe one of the Caraballistas, because we don't want to break the Raffords. We pull into that as well, and Henselt does nothing. And I think we float this because with Crystal Skull, we kind of want to put that on one of the Witchers and have that adrenaline effect of it just doing 3 damage per turn passively and not having its ability locked either. If they damage this here, we still have a chance to heal it up. So it's one of those things where we have to decide, if we go boost this here and we don't use Skull, then we're going to be probably having that removed with another Rebuke. I think it's probably more valuable for us here just to get the carryover and to get out of the round before we need to worry about the adrenaline effect of the Witcher. I'm considering Henselt here. It's a little pricey. We could just go for something like that. You see what I mean? We're going for that carryover. I think I start working on the Young Dryad here just because that's the only thing that's really doing a whole lot. We could even maybe take a winch here. Reset the cooldown, get in the carryover turn, boost that in deck, and then maybe we go for the pass here. I don't want to use my 10 orders because I don't want that to come out this turn. It's kind of expensive. We run the risk of losing on even here if we let the sorceress tick. I don't have a rebuke. And I think that if we go and damage the sorceress, they'll just be able to use a special to heal it. But we still have to damage it either way.
I'm a medic. I tend to know what I'm doing when I prescribe something.
And I don't mind taking Shani if it means we win a round, because Shani doesn't really play into our scenario combo. It only brings back humans. We don't have sieges with it. Witchers don't count as humans. So you see, I'm showing you guys here the counters at 1. So it feels like we gotta go.
War will be our downfall.
So they could be doing lots of different things here. Orbs would be one of them. This was kind of frustrating, but they didn't end up DCing. It was just, I guess, a quick connection lost. It came back. So the positive part here is that we get a little bit more carryover and that they use the leader charge on the Hamadryad. So it wasn't all bad. We just have to hope that they don't try and bleed too hard here in round 2. That's a pretty good hand. I don't mind the Envoy on a pass, but I don't believe that we used Amphibious yet, so that's still an option and something we can pull. So Saskia is a bit of a problem here. We gotta take Raffords here and basically get some tempo on the board, get something working out here. We hope that it doesn't snipe it. Okay, so that's good. Now, we take the siege crew, then it does the random damage. The only issue here is that we don't have crew for the Foltest Pride. And I suppose you could have stacked the Foltest Pride to the left of Henselt and then put down a Marine to its left as well, but it's tough because I want to sandwich crew on both of these units, but we just miss a little bit of the Henselt cooldown in exchange. But the 2 damage that we get from just continuing to place beside the Raffords is probably just worth it in the long run.
If you could just sign the
and that card doesn't really do a whole lot for us here. Maybe I go and I take that just so we can recomp our hand if we're pulling bad in round 3. That looks pretty good. I'm feeling pretty confident that they're not going to be getting a 2-0 situation here. I think it's important that we try and preserve card advantage, and this helps us thin our deck down quite a bit. We have a couple cards we could play, but I don't think we're going to even have to play Siege here. And that's the pass that we're looking for. So that's not all bad here. That's pretty good. Confident with this hand. I want to get this presence down so that if they put down Ethne or whatever the case, we have answers to it. There, they can't remove that one with the rebuke. At least we get it going. And I know someone's going to mention this in the comments. I'm well aware. I could have saved a point here if I put the Ballista on the ranged row. But I got excited to board wipe and it just happened, okay? Because you missed the resupply here. Could have used the orders and then played it. And yeah. You see what I mean? Either way, they forfeit, it's done. And moving on to the next one here. But I'm just mentioning that though, so you want to use orders on the reinforced ballistas before you play warfare cards. Warfare card is the third stage of scenarios, so technically that's kind of why you do it. Just use that ranged order and then put down the other card, reuse the order, get the extra point for formation going forward. So we're running into elves. We don't know what kind of elves yet, or if it's even elves. It could just be the leader for Point Slam. It's always a difficult matchup because it takes you usually a round and a half to figure out what exactly they're doing. Indication of traps is usually when they play scenario round 1, but a lot of people now are running Saskia instead of scenario. So it makes it even more difficult here. But I do think it's probably Saskia traps if you're looking at it this way. And yeah, I can't say I love the situation that we're in. We want crew for both. I don't want to go and use leader charges, so at least we put down something here. Pride is still 4 turns, but we do have the winch and another winch access, so I don't think it's super terrible if we don't have the crew for the Pride, but I think we definitely want to get crew for the Vengeance. That's a good snipe. So that tells me here we just gotta go and winch it. Remove the Saskia. And this play wasn't... like, I didn't put Pride in the deck so that we're playing against Saskia better. It just coincidentally really helps get rid of that here before they do anything with that. And then we kind of want to focus on getting at least one of the sentries out of the way, because those get pretty crazy. Yeah, it's nuts. So if I go John into Boiling here,
Dark clouds gather over Temeria.
we could take out the Sentry and then purify the Dryad for the extra point. I was tempted to take out Pyrotech, but Pyro might actually hit armor or the 2. So it's probably worse for them to click it. Yeah, so that just gets round pass here. I'm pretty good with that. I think we definitely want to have some round control here in this matchup because I don't know what they're playing. Now, we didn't have the luxury that we had in the first game with the Dandelion getting the huge carryover buff, but we still have it. What's really cool is you could do a same round Dandelion as well. You can buff something up, and then you can literally just Amphibious into it. So don't feel bad if you have round 3 with Dandelion in hand and you gotta pull the combo off then. Now, I might go take something with Amphibious, because we have a moment here to look at it.
No horse, I said.
See if we
Want
could
to
top
be
deck
exercised,
better.
I said.
Don't really want any of those cards for round 3. So seeing Oniro and Saskia tells me that I don't see them having enough room necessarily for a Feign Death as well. I think we just pass on that. I'm expecting traps. But I do think even if we run into traps, we have more points. And if we can sequence our scenario properly and have a last say payoff, that could just be the difference. Because we have a lot of things that aren't siege engines that we could play. So we have a pull for the Hensel. We're going to be taking Amphibious probably into a Ballista. We have the Hubert that's going to come out of the deck. I didn't want to take another mulligan there just in case. And Telltale Sign, we have Saber here, so yeah. We can just play around that immediately by putting down something like Shani.
Severed limbs, blood, and guts.
And it'd be really cool if we can get Shani twice, but I doubt it. Problem here is that if they have Serpent Trap, we're playing into it with Shani, so I don't want to go much taller than that. But I feel like if we don't use the Marine, we just might lose it. And I think we go for that row stack here. I don't mind playing something like Dandelion at all.
With pleasure.
Because if that sticks, we're getting huge point slams for later on. So I guess it's not all bad if it eats the heat wave here.
One piece. Fight for it.
So this is something I wasn't thinking about. I was thinking about just stacking row, and I totally forgot for a second that it had ranged. Realistically, if I was to replay this, I probably would have put Hensel on ranged with it, so that we still are playing around the row. But I decide, okay, we take the 2 damage so that we can hold the 2 damage for later in the game, and Henselt still does get that cooldown boost for the Shani. So it's not all bad here. But we definitely want to just kind of play around that really quick so that we can get some of the points back before we lose more from the Tiger. And just kind of looking back on my experience with this deck, it's one of the easiest decks I think I've played in a long time to make mistakes. because there's a lot of cooldowns, there's a lot of things that have crew, and there's a lot of things that are row locked. So that's a big thing. Also, you want to intentionally play things with formation, sometimes on melee, so that you can stack them with the griffin, so that when you use the leader, the cooldowns are setting for all the units on the row. So it does affect the way you play sometimes. Now, I like the fact that we could actually take something out here. We'll use that before we lose that. And we have pretty big points. But here's the thing. Like, I need to take a second shanty before we know it gets killed, so I can get the most value from it. So I'm trying to decide if I want to hold off just like maybe another turn here before we use a special. We could put down this other siege engine, or we could put down the griffin, because I don't think we're going to get a good chance either way. Incredibly frustrating matchup for us. We know we need about 40 points to win. It's just kind of what I'm keeping in mind here. Okay, that's good. It feels like one of those things I just want to get over with here. There we go. And we probably want to boost the one, just in case they go across the back row. And so this is what I'm talking about here. You see how we have cooldowns on the range row? We don't have a lot of space because of where the scenario is placed and kind of the amount of units. Like Hubert came on the back row here, so fortunately we don't need a lot of charges here. We can even use one on melee to help set the other one back. Just because I know we're running low on space anyways. And yeah, I didn't think it really mattered as far as like our playing sequence here. Doing the math in the game, we just pretty much won regardless of, you know, whether we use all our orders or not. So you could put down the Caraballista, obviously, so we get the order. That would have been fine. But we just know that they use leader, flip the traps, and then Aileron comes out. So again, I'm not nitpicking a couple points here, more than what we knew what to do with. And moving on to the next one here, we have Nilfgaard double cross. So I think that requires boosting. I don't like boosting that in the Nilfgaard matchup, but I do know that if we don't, it's just too easy for them to remove. But it's also something that they could really benefit from if they have Yen's Invocation, or even that would be a great heat wave for them.
Now you must serve the Empire.
Ship ahoy! And it's all for me grog. Me nokey grog.
I decided to float them just in case I needed them. What you could do here, because we don't have a lot in hand that we want to boost besides maybe Henselt, is you could have probably just used them on each other as far as the Marines. But I've seen a lot of times still, especially if we're running into more Saskia, that's kind of like a couple matchups really that we had that problem. You could maybe not play into Treason. It just puts it at risk of like a joust or a coup, and then you see here, basically that's what it takes. I thought about taking Henselt here for a thin. I don't remember if I went and did that, because we have a really good boiling oil on the Glynis. The only issue is that obviously we don't get to use the Marine just yet.
Scrub this, scrub that, for fuck's sake. I'm sick of these chills.
And we'll just do the same thing. I think that's worth a boiling oil. It plays for 7 points. Assuming they're devil, right? No, they're not devotion.
Does not go away.
I don't really want to play too thoroughly into the round here. I think we just try and find our way out, because I know once they start getting down a couple of these bonded units, the points are just going to come flying. Also, the 15-point Vengeance is pretty vulnerable to removal here, so that's so funny. I just got a YouTube comment that popped up on my screen. What's going on, Ed Cook? He's asking me for Siege. And it's funny because I'm recording a Siege video right now, so perfect timing, buddy. It'll be here when you wake up tomorrow. Yeah, I don't feel bad about that. That combo's out of the way. We've got card here. We can sort of deal. Seeing Glynis come around is pretty good. That's honestly a really good engine. I like how Nilfgaard has Assimilate 2, and then Syndicate has the Intimidate 2, and everybody goes crazy about those. But then you see monsters with Thrive 2, and everyone's like, nah. I guess you do run a little thinner on options with monsters when you're thriving too, but right now is probably the perfect time to run the Fuka because there's units that go just so tall. So we have to obviously respect that a little bit. I want to stay card ahead. We still have some pretty good tools to make it pretty much impossible for them to get that card back, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. And we can pull off a crew with Henselt on melee if we need to, beside John.
Everyone has their secrets. Everyone.
Brathens is kind of huge here.
You want peace? Fight for it.
So I want to stay ahead. Extra point here on the Witcher makes sense. It gives us crew on the melee row for the Pride.
I need not spill blood to make
I
you suffer like
Don't
never
think
before.
Henselt is what they really want to make a copy of here. Good pings. Obviously, we want to try and preserve
You could just sign
the Pride if we
confirmation
can. Because if I play it, they pass, then we've just wasted that. We do have a pretty good play here if we were to use something like the winch. And thinking about it here too, could have definitely very well put the envoy beside the Henselt in the back on the left side.
Nilfgaard requires rejuvenation, a rebirth.
That's what I was talking about with like a lot of moving pieces. But definitely like looking back at the play here, there's just a couple little things. I just don't see them finding the points either, which is really good. I know they're forcing it, but seeing something like that especially isn't very good. And I kind of want to take Shenny before they go and take it from me. I think if they were to roll that with leader, it would just be too many points.
Scrub this, scrub that, for fuck's sake, I'm sick of these shows.
And all their engines, except for, I guess you could say, Brathens would be taken out here, so we'll just start pinging that one down. So we should be able to defend card That would be actually very bad if they get Pride here, though. Because they have the 2 soldiers in the front row. Yeah, it's too much of a risk. And they're doing a very good job at getting some of these cards I otherwise would try and hold on to. But if it was any other leader, I probably would have just saved them. Or tried to save them. Seeing Hansel come down 3 points there, it's not really a big deal for me. And then they're going to have to use the Froth to get ahead, which means we could pretty much just play anything we have here. I think we played the special. Yeah, and I'm just doing it properly here to show you guys, like, I understand the principle of it. Simple enough, right? We get ahead more than enough points. We keep 2 leader charges. We have card advantage. Huge advantage for us here. We get out Joachim, some of the thinning, the Terra Nova, Lydia, Brathens, you name it. I want to see if we can greed scenario. You know, Dandelion's also pretty good. We end up pulling Dandelion here, which is fine. We could try and pull off a win without the scenario, no big deal. It's only like 14 provisions, you know? But Dandelion, this is what I was talking about earlier. If you can play Dandelion and then start boosting something in deck and pull it out last say, it doesn't really matter what it is. And in this matchup, I think that they're going to have another Tall Punish, so I don't really want to pull out the card. So I opt for the one that already has the highest base power, even though I know there's a chance of not using the order here. And I really want to capitalize as much as I can on this cooldown stuff here and get as many Dandelion pushes here. So it's already at 9 points. You see what I mean here? Huge advantage. I think we can afford to greed that.
What is truth if not an illusion?
That is all I need.
It'll be too late before they get to it. Now, obviously I want to snipe Artorias.
The wonders of projectiles and ranged weapons.
They don't, but that's fine. At this point, even if they have Yen, I staged it so we'd win. So the Blight's just fine. We take that last Dandelion boost before we pull, of course. And then just slam it down. There we go. You see what I mean? Pretty good win here. Didn't even get scenario. So the deck has some flexibility. And moving on to the last one, I'm sure this is a matchup that you guys want to see because there's been so much of it lately on the ladder. I know everyone likes Fruits of Ysgith decks because they're like my highest viewed decks that I post.
It's not about why, it's about why not.
Typical start here. I don't boost it because I don't want to get the odd pred dive. We play around natural selection with it just being 5 base power. We don't play around parasite, but a lot of times I don't see it in this list. And something like that's just fine. So I want to make sure the one that we play off of it gets us the crew that we're looking for. So we can go and take that and just jam it beside, get the damage, reduce the cooldown in the middle by 1. So we could start cycling that out a little bit more, and then finally go and take the boost where we should here to make sure it's protected. No, that's not a soldier, so we just tuck it to the side here. And we have really good engine dominance here. We can go ahead and give it Zeal, get the extra point off it too. That's what's nice about siege support. You kind of just use it when you need it, where you need it. But it helps set up a pretty good presence in the round. And now we should be able to just play some bronze cards. So counters 3, I'm just showing you guys here that I don't love the idea of bringing it down to 0. We will if we have to, but it's one of those things where we kind of want to leave 4. I don't mind seeing it here as much though, considering it's not boosted. We could just take John into boiling. Get the extra 2, hopefully it doesn't hit the pig. I guess that's fine. And we have a charge of 1 or order of 1 left. Counter of 1, yeah. So 17-point difference here. If I play one more card... Okay. So there is a choice to not use any orders this turn. And that's what I opt for. And it's because I want to see if we can hold on to that card in deck. With the 3-point per turn engine, it's kind of nuts.
I don't nibble at them, they'd fall right out.
We do have the 3 points of damage there, plus the 3 off the turn end. I think if we pass here, they get ahead on 1. So it might be worth taking. I wanted to see if we can get a pass. We didn't get the pass. But now I just don't want to lose round, because I'd like to be able to pass on Mushy Truffle round 2. Or at least provoke them to use it here. And argument to go and use Winch on the Carabalista in the back, sure. Yeah, that should just be enough to get ahead here. Can't say I was expecting Shunos. So we have a lot of good cards to help defend a bleed. I don't feel too bad about it here. I would probably play this leader again. And this deck again. But it's... like, it's not my favorite type. I love control decks, but I like just not getting all of my control from units. Like, I love playing special cards. I kind of just wish they had a few more warfare cards. It's really just the winches, the boiling, reinforcements, and amphibious for the most part here. And it's going to be a slow cooldown with this, but we have to play it. We definitely don't want to have 2 fruits going. But we're good. The longer that they stay in this round, the worse that it is for them here. And we just have to deny Sabbath, and we're in pretty good shape. So that's really the only thing. Cards like that help. We dive in with the amphibious here, I'm sure. And since the 2 of them are on the front row, we want to obviously play the reinforced ballista up there too, so that we can get the cooldown for refresh on all 3 of them. Go and take that, start working on the She Who Knows. And Unicorn comes out. That's going to be for Hensel. And then they have the Mamuna. But they don't have the full pair set up. So we can just play whatever. I decide we want to take out that. They get no carryover. And then it doesn't really matter if we click that or not. We could just play the Envoy.
Please,
Something like that. That should be fine. We have Shani short round 3 leader charges. Pretty confident there. And we see Dandelion here, but we don't have the amphibious here. So if we keep Dandelion, it's just for the 6 points it's worth. I think either option's probably a little bit more effective. But then again, the ballista might not be very good either if they have like a natural selection before we even get to use it, or whatever the case.
Garments are shackles that restrain our desires.
If you think about it, well, I played for quite a bit of points. Taking the Griffin's actually really nice here. And we can hit that Self-Eater so they can't split it. It would be really nice if we were able to snipe that. But I don't think it really matters here. And I don't think leader charge is very important at this point either. We just use it there. Have a lower unit on the board. And 9 doesn't quite do it. We could just put down the Dandelion for points. We'll see you guys tomorrow with another brand new video. And if you guys have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to get to some of them. See you then.